What if our planet wasn't this familiar, beautiful blue marble, but a giant, spinning cube? Okay, first things first. Gravity would get super weird. If you were standing in the middle of one of the flat faces, it would feel pretty normal. You could walk around, maybe build a house, no big deal. But the moment you started walking towards an edge, things would get slanted. Gravity would always pull you towards the center of the entire cube. So, the further you get from the center of a face, the steeper the ground would feel. It'd be like living on a permanent, increasingly steep hill. Forget a leisurely stroll, you'd be basically rock climbing just to get to the corner. Anyone living near the edges would have some seriously strong calf muscles. And what about our oceans? Well, say goodbye to our global seas. All that water, it would get pulled by gravity into 6 massive, separate square oceans right in the middle of each face. The water would bulge up in the center, creating a sort of giant permanent water bubble. So you'd have these 6 isolated super lakes surrounded by nothing. That's right, the edges and corners of the cube would be completely bone dry. The water would all drain towards the center of the faces, leaving the vast areas near the edges as high-altitude, barren deserts. We'd have 6 wet worlds completely cut off from each other by immense, desolate wastelands. No sailing from Europe to America. You'd have to cross a desert mountain range to get to the next ocean. Our atmosphere would do the same thing. It would be thickest and richest in oxygen in the center of each face, right over those giant square oceans. But as you traveled towards the edges, the air would get thinner and thinner fast. The corners of the cube would essentially be like the top of Mount Everest or even higher, almost a vacuum. You'd need an oxygen tank just to visit your neighbors on the next face over. So where would people live? Well, all of civilization would be clustered in these 6 safe zones in the center of each face. These would be the only habitable places with breathable air and liquid water. We'd have 6 separate civilizations developing in total isolation, almost like they were on different planets. They might not even know for centuries that other worlds existed just over the horizon. Imagine the politics. Wars would be fought not over land, but over proximity to the center. The closer you are to the middle of the face, the more valuable your property. The edges, those dangerous, airless wastelands, might be used for scientific research, mining, or maybe as a no-man's land between rival civilizations. They'd be the Wild West, but on a planetary scale. And travel? Forget airplanes as we know them. To get from one face to another, you'd need a specialized vehicle, almost like a spacecraft, capable of traversing the thin atmosphere and extreme slopes of the edges. It would be a treacherous, epic journey every single time. Maybe we'd build giant bridges or maglev trains that connect the centers of the faces, arcing over the desolate corners. Weather would also be bizarre. With no planet-wide rotation to create things like the Coriolis effect, we wouldn't have our large-scale hurricane or cyclone patterns. Instead, you'd probably get strange, localized weather systems swirling around the center of each face, maybe creating a permanent, weird storm in the middle of each ocean. The edges, being airless and dry, would be static and unchanging. Finally, think about day and night. The cube would still spin, but depending on how it spins, you could have some faces in permanent daylight and others in permanent darkness. Or maybe you'd have a bizarre cycle where the sun rises and sets at a weird angle as the cube tumbles through space. Looking up at the sky, you wouldn't see a smooth horizon, but a sharp straight line where the world just ends. So, life on Cube Earth would be a collection of 6 isolated worlds, clinging to the centers of each face for survival, staring out at the sharp, terrifying edges of their reality. It makes you appreciate our simple, boring, round planet a little more, doesn't it? So, if you had to choose, where would you live? In the safe, crowded center, or would you dare to explore the wild, empty edges? Let me know.